Oh, me?
Yeah, you. What you doing all the way over here?
Well, I don't know. I guess it hasn't been a very good year.
There's a party going on, why don't you come along?
I'd rather be alone. I think I should head home.
What's up, let me explain. Your night won't be mundane.
I don't know what's getting late.
But this night could be so great. Just come with me and say how we all wanna be. With you here on the side, everything will be alright.
Welcome everyone to the Team Yume video podcast, because why not, am I right?
Yeah, why not?
Crazy eyes, crazy eyes. So, so the big guy in the really small frame, it is I, Madhog, and the small guy in the really big frame is WhyBoy. Hi WhyBoy.
Hello.
That's how
That's
things
it.
come out on Skype, basically. And you have a cat over there. So
Yes.
you have puppets in the background. You can also see the difference in our equipment. You have this very professional looking alien microphone from outer space.
Yep.
Me, I have a blue Yeti with a sock on it.
Very nice.
It's not fancy, but it's functional for what it is.
Yeah.
So
Yay,
practicality.
functional. Yay.
So what is this video podcast going to be about? We're going to discuss, upon pensive days passed in thinking of what should we be discussing, as in like 2 minutes, the time it took me to decide, hey, you know what, we should review, or at least discuss about, this ongoing webcomic by a talented animator and artist by the name of Zoophobia, which you can find on YouTube. The animator, the comic, you can find it on Tumblr. And funnily enough, how this idea and podcast came to be, it much like in the same way, the same vein in which we started play puzzle game. I was like, hey WhyBoy, hi WhyBoy, say hi.
I think hi.
Play the part. Hey,
Yeah.
hey, I have this game called Puzzle Game. Should we do a let's play of it? And then you
I
said,
played that game, so sure.
what a coinkydink. And then I said the other day, hey, I know this comic called Zoophobia. We should discuss about it. And then you said,
I've read that comic, sure.
is this becoming a running joke? I proposed something to do together and you said, oh, I did that already. No problem.
Well, it's not a long-running joke so far, because we only done it twice.
Yeah. Well, 2 times already kind of counts as a running joke now, doesn't it? I mean, it's a rule of thumb decides that. So let's talk about Zoophobia, which is not to be confused with Disney's next big-time animated film, which is titled Zootopia. They have one big similarity, though, which is kind of blatant. As soon as you, borrow your eyes upon said products. Say it with me.
Yeah.
Furries!
Furries.
Furries
Yeah.
everywhere. Furry kingdom, furrylicious furries everywhere. Furries, 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 furries. Furries. So if you're allergic to furry and the furry fandom and fur affinity and all of that, you probably won't be interested in this comic. But if you're willing to look past it, then you will find there is a lot of stuff in this comic that's worth getting hot and bothered over, at least in my experience with it.
Yeah.
So, but before that, so did you enjoy this comic, WhyBoy?
Yes, I really did enjoy this comic. I do see the similarities between Zootopia and all that, but I hadn't heard of Zootopia by the time I first watched it. The first mention of Zoophobia I saw was after seeing Vizzy-Pop's video of, what was it?
Die
It was
Young.
a music... Yeah, Die Young.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, we were going to have to discuss about that music video as well, since it's that one animation stunt that put her on the map, so to speak. Even though the song itself is copyrighted, so she cannot even monetize the video, which is a shame because it's one of those animated animated videos that really took a lot of time and effort to make. And if you see 2 seconds of it, you will immediately understand why. But before that, I have nothing against furries or people who enjoy anthropomorphic animals as an art form per se. I do not go out of my way to celebrate the art form of anthropomorphic animals, but me, much like everyone else in the world, have grown up watching cartoons. And amongst those cartoons, there is a lot of Looney Tunes, Disney, and even Hanna-Barbera. And all those cartoons had anthropomorphic main character animals, which is always a testament of how much important is the practice of humanizing animals in order to metaphorically represent the vices and behaviors of humanity. Basically, we ever since classic fairy tale of yore have always imbued our very specific sets of behaviors and very specific sets of traits into specific animals as we interpret them to be in a specific way, in a specific human way. For example, the fox has always been the smart animal, but also arrogant. You know, the goat is dumb as they come. And the lion is noble and a ruler. All of the classic stuff. So we are used to have anthropomorphic animals to be used as a representation of very specific human behaviors, or as a way to actually dissect and deconstruct what is essentially human nature through the metaphorical lenses of the animal kingdom. And that's what Zootopia is basically going to do once it comes out next year. I don't know, when does Disney's Zootopia comes out?
I believe it's coming out next year. I would have to look it up to be doubly sure.
I'm looking forward to that. The trailer is promising, but... So, we are used to the idea of animals representing very specific traits of the human race. Which is why I would like to point out that in this comic, in Zoophobia, again, not to be confused with Zootopia, completely different thing. In Zoophobia, for a comic that has the vast majority of its cast comprised of anthropomorphic animals, doesn't really have any good reason to have anthropomorphic animal characters in it. At least for my money, and I will explain why that is the case later on. But first of all, let's talk about the art style of Zoophobia. What do you think about it, Taylor?
Well, I think Visipop's style uses a lot of more vibrant sort of colors to it, which is like very eye-catching. Like with her original music video that I saw, like her character's movements and all that were so like flowing to it, swishing and all around. The vibrant colors just popping on screen just made it like stand out, and that sort of translates to the comic as well. Like these are Visipop's style.
Yes.
Like you could not like recognize it from anybody else. Like even the anthropomorphic animals are like completely one of a kind. Like the dog characters, like they have, like I forget the name of the dog characters, but this dog, an anthropomorphic character, is different from every other like dog character that we've ever seen before. It's much more slender style, much more like narrow hands and all that. It creates a much more like unique world for Visipop to use in Zootopia.
Yes, absolutely. I agree on that sentiment. She has a very recognizable style and a fluidity to the movements in her original animations that really translate well in how dynamic these characters in her comics are drawn and portrayed. Not only in the physical body movement, but also in the facial expressions. Which brings me to a terrible, terrible and petty complaint that I have about Visipop art style. And I'm going to sound like a douchebag because of this, but, you know, we mentioned how fluid the animation and her style in general is, but I had to wonder if that's a bit too much occasionally.
Too much fluidity?
Yes, I mean, okay, it seems like, for example, our animation that we mentioned before, that animated music video of the song Die Young. There was so much movement in it, and most of it felt completely unnecessary and all over the place. It's like she put a lot of effort to animate this, but and it only stands out to me how much most of these motions, most of these movements of the body and the over-the-top expressions, the facial expressions too, felt a bit unnecessary, a bit too much. They become a distraction rather than a way to immerse you in the colorful and rich looking world. And I don't know, I'm basically criticizing animation for having too much animation in it.
No, I can totally understand that. It's also with the critique, like there's too much detail in something. Once
Well,
you put too much detail into it, sort of just all blurs together in a way, which is sort of like with the fluidity of the motions.
Not too much, not too much detail, as in too much.
Yeah.
It feels like movement for the sake of movement. I like showcasing how much she's good with it by having this character move all over the place, even though half of those movements really don't have much in terms of perfect timing. I like to say. Again, it sounds like a terrible and petty critique, and if I come across like a jealous jerk, that's because I am. Jokes aside, that problem also translates in her comics, because even though they're not animated characters anymore, they are still frames, because it's a comic, duh. Unless it's a GIF comic, but that's another fact altogether.
Another thing.
So, it reflects because all these characters that she draws, it feels like they are in the process of moving in really unnecessary, unbridled ways. And the same goes with the over-the-top facial expressions. Ironically, it's like, it's cartoonish, but not in the good cartoonish way, in a way that's kind of unbridled and all over the place, kind of cartoonish. Ren and Stimpy, kind of cartoonish, except much more unique looking.
Yeah, I can totally see that. It just sort of, like, I could sort of notice that as well. It's, in a way, like, it's back to my sort of, like, too detailed sort of thing. Like, the movements are sometimes too grand to actually feel like they're actual regular movements. It's mostly like you have a nice tea set scene where a bunch of prissy British people are just sipping tea, and then you have a clown in the background just waving their arms. It feels sort of out of place of the whole world of it.
That's
I know that's a weird example, but
that's a really nice analogy. I like it.
well, thank you.
Anyway, I think that wraps up our thought for the art style. It's unique and it has a lot of character in it and effort, especially effort. You can tell that, but for our tastes, it tends to be too much. You know, too much movement, too much dynamicity. That's not even a real word, but too much motion, even in the still images. Too much.
Yeah.
Too much grandeur and theatrics in the way these characters are portrayed and presented to us. I use words to
You used
describe
a bunch
things.
of words that are all garbled and basically no one understands them.
Well,
that's what
the
words
story.
are for.
Well, that's the story of my life. Don't get me started in talking about the classic decoupage of filmmaking. There, more words.
Yay, words.
So anyway, that's it for the art style. If you like it or not is primarily going to depend on how much you feel about it personally, which is more or less about everything that's ever been made.
Yeah.
But on to the more touchy subject. We mentioned before that a lot of these characters are furries. I mean, not
you
furries.
that.
I mean,
You
I mentioned.
that, Eric.
I mean, I said I meant to say anthropomorphic animals, or let's face it, very much cartoon animals.
Yeah.
Looney Tunes cartoon animals, or Disney-esque in some way, but very distinguishable. But they're cartoon animals. I mean, there is the school bully who is this Pluto dog, basically, with a collar. I cannot take that seriously for a second, but. You see,
That's supposed to be taken seriously, though.
well, some of these characters are clearly supposed to be very relatable young adult characters with very relatable real life problems that are represented in a, a metaphorical,
Yeah.
fantasy-esque way. The problem is that when you have this character with these very relatable problems and this very relatable personality, looking like a Looney Tune character, it's hard to get invested. And actually, it has less to do with the fact that these are anthropomorphic animals and more to do with the fact that these anthropomorphic animals are sharing their settings with other sort of creatures that you'd think have absolutely nothing to do with cartoon animals. And for example, I enjoy My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. That's not a secret to anyone. I am able to suspend my disbelief as it is required to enjoy this cartoon because the world of the cartoon is shown to us in a consistent and coherent way. It's all colorful characters that look like they belong in the same world. With Zoophobia, my main issue with it is that I could never buy that this kind of scenario would have cartoon animals on one side and freaking demons from hell on the other side with some humans running around in the middle. Which kind of reaches its absolute zenith of madness in the introduction of a very specific character, which is literally the Antichrist.
Yeah.
He is literally the son of the literal devil, and his mother is an anthropomorphic fox. The devil married a fox, and said fox had a child, and that child is Furry Antichrist. That is so freaky. That is so weird. And the fact that the comic actually treats this knowledge and this revelation like something completely normal and goes completely nonchalant about it, switching to the next character and the next focus chapter because it has an episodic nature, this comic, only makes me even more bothered because why isn't anybody making a big deal out of this? The devil marries a fox and they have an Antichrist cub. This seems something out of a South Park Christmas special written by Cartman.
Well, talking from the narrative sort of perspective, it seems everything is already in medias res, so everyone already knows he's the Antichrist. So it wouldn't make sense for a character who lived there for their whole life going like, oh my god, are you actually the Antichrist?
You know,
I've known since you were a kid that you're an Antichrist, but dude, are you actually? Whoa!
I would have expected the main character, the alleged human main character, which is serving as the audience point of view for most of it, to have a bigger reaction to it, considering up until the point she has pretty much freaked out over everything and everyone she's encountered.
But
To the point.
problem with that is that Miss Cameron isn't really in the comic all that much. We're mostly with the characters that have already been in this sort of universe most of the time. And Miss Cameron, every chance that she's into the story, she's all like, oh my god, I'm crazy, this is all weird, and I'm gone.
Well, she has a chapter devoted to her when she does her first counseling to that dog person that just so happens to be the cousin of the Antichrist. So when that argument is brought up, a reaction to it is like, so the devil is real. Huh. Well then, tell me about yourself. I don't know, it's one of those little things that really makes me completely jump out of the figurative window of the suspension of disbelief. I mean, suspension of disbelief was a house, and Zoophobia was a demolition ball. And I was inside the house, and I need to get out as fast as possible.
Well, I feel like I have a much more different problem than you have. Like, your problem is that the whole world of it isn't, you aren't able to buy the world because of some of the characters' interactions. My issue is that this whole story of it is so all over the place because our focus point is completely removed from the scenario most of the time, and then we're meeting up with new characters each and every single chapter that we have to introduce to.
Yes, that's also part of the problem. You have this very creative, vast universe that it's not very cohesive and coherent with itself, and the author just keeps adding new characters and new stories without properly focusing on developing what's already been established, which isn't all that much. In fact, why don't we actually start by talking about the plot so far of the comic? By the time we're recording this, it's the 10th of January 2016, and we are discussing about all the updates that are currently available at this specific date of this comic. So, chapter 1, how does that begin?
Basically, Miss Cameron goes to like get a teaching gig. She goes through this obviously evil woman.
I need a job! Please give me a job! I'll do anything! Yeah, it's a commentary on economic crisis-driven society.
Yeah, yes, of course. And so she's sent off to this very far away place where she won't be able to return.
Actually, time out. This also brings up an interesting point. I mean, for a comic starring anthropomorphic cartoon animals and hell's demons, you wouldn't expect certain themes to pop out and be an actual focus of a specific chapter, like religious bigotry or homosexuality.
Yeah.
Yeah, more on that later. It feels weird to have them in this specific setting, that lacks solid foundations, and goes all over the place, much like the style of the author. So this all makes sense. That's the only thing coherent about it. It's not bad, mind you. It's just weird.
Yeah.
Continue, please.
So basically, Miss Cameron goes off to this magical place, and she realizes as she gets there that everyone's an animal. And it turns out that she has a phobia for animals. So, whoa, wacky hijinks ensues.
I think I know the title of the comic is Zoophobia, but I actually interpret it as her more being freaked out because she's being addressed by anthropomorphic talking animals in an alien world, which would be enough to have anyone freaked out at this point. So
she becomes the counselor for the school, and that's basically her story. And she already has done her one case with one kid who basically isn't able to die and is an
he has a curse or a gift that was bestowed upon him by the devil himself, which is his uncle. I remind you, the devil is someone's uncle, and that nephew is a dog person. And then you wonder how my suspension of disbelief is getting demolished. Because the dog person's mother begged her sister, which was again the devil's mistress, to save the child because of reasons I cannot properly remember. That whole chapter was kind of a complete blank spot in my mind, that entire chapter, because that entire chapter is basically the entire backstory of this dog kid. In fact, you know what? Speaking of the job that the alleged main character, Miss Cameron, is supposed to be a vessel for, this actually brings up the first jarring point about this specific setting. It's a supernatural high school setting. So if you've ever seen Monster High of Rosario plus Dawson, or basically every supernatural rom-com anime ever made, you'd be familiar with the concept. It's an high school for monsters and creatures of any kind. It just so happens that the majority of these creatures are all anthropomorphic animals for some reason and then there are some human-animal hybrids running around as well, which raises a lot of very disturbing questions.
Yeah, I think it's more that they can transform the part human to basically blend in a way, I believe, is how they explain it in a way.
Why would they even need to blend in when everyone else is already a cartoon animal?
Yeah, I know. That's just
If
their
anything,
sort of excuse.
if anything, they actually stand out more like a sore thumb. There is this human girl who's been teased because she is human, and she's been adopted by a cat person, as in a literal cat person, not a lady that has a lot of cats. That's that's something on the side for now, not being explored at this specific point. Then again, I don't doubt it for a second that there has to be some human-animal hybrid running around, because we already have an hybrid between a fox and the devil itself in the Furry Antichrist kid, which, by the way, is named Damien. I know, right? That's a great name. Not a dead giveaway in any kind.
Yeah.
And also, speaking of Damien, he's been portrayed in a very inconsistent way. I mean, one chapter is a complete jerk that tries to screw a friend of his from his girlfriend because he's interested in said girlfriend. And in the next chapter, he's portrayed as one of those wide-eyed, innocent children that just want to see the world. A bit inconsistent.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's the wide-eyed. It's like, oh wow, everything's awesome. He's more like, oh my god, I'm more free now, so I can do anything I want now. It's
I don't
it's
know.
more like the free rebel sort of character that I feel that he's trying to become.
I don't
Which
know.
is still inconsistent, but
Yeah, I don't know. Have you seen his reaction to comic books? He's a huge nerd. But anyway, so, okay, I'm getting you and everyone following this all over the place, but basically, yeah, back to the point. This is an high school setting. It just to further the my doubts over the validity of having the majority of these characters being cartoon animals, because you think these kind of characters do not belong in an high school setting, at least in a supernatural high school setting, such as Rosario plus Dawson, the Rosario+Vampire. Did I just call it Rosario+Dawson? I meant to say Rosario+Vampire. Or you would expect vampires or zombies or ghosts. Instead, you get anthropomorphic animals and some vampire popping out at some point, invading, basically, a safe haven that it was not supposed to get in. And it just raises so many questions about how this universe actually works. Answers that we don't get, because ironically, the author wants to focus on telling more slice of life stories and
stories.
introducing each character with each chapter, which is a good idea if the setting of this ongoing story actually allowed for, simple slice of life. As it stands, there is so much of it that doesn't really make sense to me.
Yeah,
For the
because at the
reasons I
same time,
explained.
she didn't set it up as a slice of life sort of story. It started off as a basically story narrative with the counselor going to the crazy school and then trying to survive here, where the evil councilwoman at the beginning clearly had a motive for sending her there, but we never learn what it is. That sort of subplot just drops completely, and then we just
Yeah.
meet up with each different kid. We're basically having a through line to the whole thing, and then deciding to let's go all over the place instead to all these other kids. Slice of life. When it's not a slice of life, it's supposed to be a one straight line as it started out.
Yes,
Which makes it inconsistent in a way.
I kind of wish they took one of these plots and make it a focus. For example, you have the Furry Antichrist, whose mother is a fox and father is the actual devil, because bestiality is a-okay, according to the devil, which makes sense. So, and then you have these kids' caretakers, and one of them just so happens to be a robot, a super fighting robot. Why? How? I'd like to learn more about that. But okay, so you want to tell maybe the human counselor story. Okay, sure, that's good. Focus on that one. But the problem is that even if you try to, reining your ambitions to focus to introducing the characters and focusing on them before moving on to a bigger plot, you still need to keep in mind that you still need to have all these various elements that you created work well together, and they still look at this point like they don't belong together, they don't mesh well together. It's because, again, the seemingly random nature of this world that's kind of just there. Anyway,
It's just unfortunately all over the place, and I'm not sure like how she can fix it at this point, as we're already like a few stories in, and now we're on the next slice of life story with these three other kids, some arguments and all that, and we're focusing on the kids and nothing on the counselor at all, which is really odd, seeing so she's supposed to be our main character, our main focus to all this weirdness, so that we can ask those questions like, oh, what's this vampire doing here? Like, what is she doing in this world? What are those fish flying in the sky?
yeah, what's your cat doing in our podcast?
Well, it makes sense because she's an anthropomorphic cat. She's walking on two legs right now and getting a fish out of the fridge.
First of all, that's creepy, and it's reminding me of Buggy, the Beast of Mighty Nature, which was an Osamu Tezuka TV special from 1983, I believe, and it's a literal furry love story. It's basically the love story between a boy and his kitten who turn into an anthropomorphic female cat.
Very nice.
It's weird, but almost as weird as this one.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go over the individual chapters that are available at this point to properly understand, to try to frame a picture of this place and how it works.
It's just really hard for me because with the random nature of it, I can't really remember all the slice of life stories of it.
Okay,
Like,
well, generally speaking, there are a few moments that are just creepy, like the fox trying to hit on the counselor, which is...
That's not really a story point, is it?
I know, but
That's more a funny joke.
it's something that happened and it's not really all that funny. Also, did somebody scream in the background?
No, that was a sneeze.
Holy cow! It sounded like somebody was getting killed.
That's how my mother sneezes.
Say hello to your mother from my part.
Yep, I'll say to her on the top floor because that's where she probably sneezed from.
Jeez,
Throughout the
all
house.
the way up to the top floor you hear that sneeze. My gosh.
Exactly.
Anyway, so chapter 1, Cameron gets introduced to this wacky world called the Safe Haven, which has been sent in without being properly briefed about it by this evil woman that we don't know the motivation of.
We don't know who she is, no
I'm pretty
motivation, like anything or sort of connection to any other villain that we've seen up to this point.
Well, I can only assume she must be behind the recent insurgence of dangerous vampires and demons invading the Safe Haven, which is supposed to be magically protected. More on that nonsense later, but anyway. That's basically chapter 1. Cameron meets up with basically all the characters you're going to have to deal with in the subsequent chapters, and she freaks out the whole time. It gets old really fast. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a reasonable reaction, understandable, very human, but they really drive it to the ground and even further down so much they do it.
Yeah. Yeah, the only like really like great point of it is like the ending of it, where she meets the principal of the school, is Zachary. And she sees, like, the glowing fish for the first time.
Actually, Zachariah, which is a giant cheetah, by the way. I thought that should be mentioned. Zachariah is not the principal of the school. It's one of the main guardians of the Safe Haven. Now, the principal was that octopus guy you see briefly.
So yeah, Zachary is not the principal. Basically, just the one that Miss Cameron talks to most of the time, like the one that she reports to.
Yes, that begs the question: what is the actual principal of the school doing this entire time? As apart from slithering creepily and leaking letters in his office, he's innocuous.
Yeah.
So says the cheetah guy, the giant cheetah guy.
Yeah.
You know, the most terrifying aspect of it all is that I know for a fact somebody has to be shipping Cameron with Zachariah.
Oh yeah, definitely. But everyone's going to be shipping any
I
sort of
know.
character with another character. That's just the
and-
nature of the internet.
Yes, in a way, but you know, since this is a webcomic that is clearly meant to be, you know, appreciated by a very specific fandom, at least it feels like that way, you cannot actually get that thought from the back of your mind, out of your mind, and it kind of it contributes to your overall distraction that you already have going on in this comic. You're already distracted by everything else in this comic. You also are distracted and alienated by the fact that, yep, somebody's going to make porn of this. I
don't think that should be a main thing because you can basically say that to anything. Like
I
the
know,
Zootopia thing, you can already see the petitions running around and everything.
Yes, you can say about that of everything. It's a rule of the internet. Rule 34. If it exists, there's porn of it. But you know, with specific products, with very specific products, it comes out as somehow, some way, even more evident, more stranger danger kind of feeling in that regard. And it's unfair of me to say that. It's an unfair assessment, but I cannot, in good faith, ignore it. I cannot fully put it aside. I mean, again, perhaps I'm being too unfair about it, but okay. This is just a pet peeve, a very personal pet peeve of mine that has nothing to do with the validity and quality of the comic. Now, the actual legitimate criticism that I've been spouting up until this point has more of a ground to work on. So,
Yeah.
Okay, so that was chapter 1. The Cameron getting adjusted to, well, at least the beginning to try and possibly finally getting adjusted eventually to this new place that she's never allowed to leave. She will never see her family and loved ones ever again. I wonder why nobody bothered to, explore that aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a missed opportunity. But anyway, so then there is chapter 2. Chapter 2 completely takes away the focus immediately from Cameron, and we focus on this new set of characters, which include Furry Antichrist guy.
Yeah.
And do summarize, please.
Well, at the same time, as it's not following Cameron's story, it just sort of becomes like glazed over in my mind because it's just not. It doesn't show any sort of connection with the overall Cameron story, which is what it was introduced as. Like this was supposed to be Cameron's story. The second story is basically following Devil Guy, his cousin, looking at his best friend with this other girl who's a dog, and they're just trying to like break them up at one point.
I should
also trying
point
to get them
out.
back together.
I should point out this character, which is an animal species that it's not particularly been established. And what was his name again? I can't remember. Well, he's got superpowers, and he kind of looked like a Pikachu, except in the size of a human boy, and without the nose. So for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to call him Pseudo-Chew. Pseudo-Chew, that's clever, isn't it? So Pseudo-Chew and his girlfriend, which is, I believe, Coyote? Some sort of...
Kayla.
Yes, her name is Kayla, but what kind of animal is that? I mean, it's some sort of a canine, maybe it's a wild dog, or one of those...
I think a wallaby, I believe.
whatever that is, yes. Well, okay, so so he has a girlfriend, and they really love each other, sickeningly so. And they have a couple of panels in which they kiss each other very passionately. Like, there is clearly an element of eroticism in those kisses. They are Frenching each other. That's, and this links back to what I was talking about having this nagging thought in the back of my mind that this was made for a very specific fandom, and it's kind of preventing me from enjoying it at its fullest, along with all its other problems. But then you have, I don't know, this interaction that's, and I still have to ponder, there really isn't any reason whatsoever for these characters to be cartoon animals, aside for the fact that they are meant to be appreciated by a specific audience. It's the only explanation. Well,
I don't think I think it's unfair to basically say it's just for the furries, and basically that's the only reason she made them like this.
Okay, you're right, it's unfair. I think she just likes anthropomorphic animals, so she draws it. I think it's just about as simple. But again, the fact that I keep thinking about this, I want to get across the fact that, in my opinion, that's testament of the fact that this comic might be scaring away potential readers that are not already, into that specific stuff because of everything that's going on. That's the point I was trying to...
I also want to say a sort of counterpoint. What are the people who have, really no idea what the furry culture sort of is? And if they came across this comic, would that scare them away? Or would they all see it as just anthropomorphic characters?
Well,
and just try to get into the story of it?
Well, the devil marrying a fox and giving birth to furry Antichrist might scare them away, but that's... And also, it's the...
I think that's reading too much. I think that's also kind of reading into it, reading to the furry sort of sexual subtext of it. It's like, oh my god,
no, it's not that.
You've been fucking a dog. And
No,
a fox fucking a devil.
no. It's not that. It's just that it's weird. Why the devil marries a fox? It's bewildering because it's something that, it's introduced without ever being properly explored. It's there, and you're just left pondering. Wait, the devil marries a fox. That's new. Why? How? And wait, they have a fox Antichrist baby. So he's both a Looney Tunes and the kid from The Omen that turns into a spider demon at some point. That's the kind of things that might scare away potential readers, not because furry aspect of it, but because it's just so incredibly weird and freaky. And all over the place.
Time, for the what and whys of that sort of scenario, what does it connect to the actual story? What if we learned that the devil married the fox because they just fell in love with each other? What would that add to the story of Cameron and the school?
Yes, what is the story, by the way? I mean,
there
okay,
really is that. It's Cameron going there and just slice of lives.
I'm okay with individual slice of life episodes. Maybe at some point getting towards a overarching narrative when all these characters come together and facing the same threat. That would make sense. But again, the way everything is introduced, it's because of the very specific frame device, the very specific narrative device, that I find myself confused and lost. If they had introduced this world as it was, without adding in an external element such as Cameron to serve as the audience point of view, if this Z-Top had just introduced to us to this world as it was, with all the characters in it, and not bother to present this world from the point of view of Cameron, which was a character that had nothing to do with this world, I wouldn't be so keen to criticize the lack of focus, because hey, it's a world where this creature lives, so let's have individual slice-of-life stories about it. But because of the human external point of view that they construct...
We want to learn the answers to it, just like Cameron wants to learn the answers to things.
Yes! That's the one thing. It's the narrative device, it's the initial framing device that kind of really ruins this
throws
comic.
everything. Yeah, throws everything out.
Exactly. That's the pivotal point and the starting point of all the criticism so far.
Yeah, that's basically it. If Cameron didn't exist, this comic would be like a lot more focused.
Or, if Cameron did exist, she was already into that world and she was one of the many characters to focus on, not
Yeah.
the one to introduce us to that world.
Yeah. Yeah, either way, we needed to start more in medias res rather than having that beginning to it. We needed either a different beginning or start it like at the school.
Yes. Yes, because, like I said before, using Cameron to introduce us to these characters, clearly we are supposed to be confused and wanting for an explanation because of that. But if we were actually to cut the middleman, to cut it out completely, and just get to these characters immediately, we wouldn't be questioning this. We would just be suspended in our disbelief and, oh, it's a world with anthropomorphic animals and occasionally demons and vampires, which is a bit weird, but I guess they are there. But with the specific framing device used to introduce this world and these characters, you just need to approach the story in a different, more coherent way, which was not the case here.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I believe that pretty much summarizes all of our thoughts about this comic.
Yeah. I still say like Vizzy Pop's work is still worth a look. She has
Absolutely.
a definite style that I would like to use for some of my projects in the future if I can ever get in contact with her. And I hope that she continues with the comic and we finally get that sort of like go back to the actual narrative so we can actually get more answers to everything.
Yes, that would be nice. As of right now, the comic is in its 5th chapter, and it's focusing on a side character who, by the looks of it, seems to be stuck in a gay love triangle,
Yeah.
which is okay. And then the previous chapter was about, like I said, the one counseling session that Cameron actually had with this one character who just happens to be the cousin of the Antichrist. And then the chapter before that, it was completely devolved on Damien and his escapade in the upper world, which was frowned upon by his family, but they solved everything because at the end they are a family, they united, they love each other, which is great. And then before that, you have this chapter focusing on Sudochu and his girlfriend, and they get to fight off a random vampire attack. And apparently Sudochu has superheroic superpowers for some reason.
Yeah.
And that was the second chapter, right after the introduction to this world. A bit too soon.
Yeah, a bit too soon.
So yes, this is more confusing and all over the place than an actual battle shonen manga, which is saying something.
But it's definitely worth a look at least, I feel.
I feel like it's definitely worth a look for the art style alone, at least for the unique art style. The art style has its problems, which ironically derive from putting too much effort in the wrong areas of this comic, if you ask me. Definitely check out Vivzy Pop YouTube channel for seeing her animations. She's made quite the brilliant stuff. So fluid, so well animated, so really time consuming to make. In fact, I believe she also made an animation video, an official animated music video for the Good Mythical Morning Five Nights at Freddy's song.
Yep.
Which is
Yes,
pretty
she did.
good. It's
Yeah.
pretty good. I mean, even if you don't care about Five Nights at Freddy's, and why would you? You're an intelligent person, are you? Well, even if you don't care about the FNAF phenomenon, just check out the music video. The animation it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's it for this podcast. This very confused and confusing, creepy, and all over the place podcast. with terrible connection problems that prevented us from actually making a video podcast.
Well, at least I'll give you a bunch of pictures so you can see my funny faces. I have a
Yes!
whole bunch of them that you can edit around and
Yes,
put extra
it's-
work into this.
Yes, it's going to be so much for me who has to edit this thing. Thank you for that, thank you.
You're welcome.
I am not very happy about this. So,
I am.
so anyway,
No, I'm not.
this has been Madhog Master
And this has been WhyBoy.
from Cartoon Corner. And, well, stay furry, everyone.
We.
Hey you,